So this country has been having the dumbest debate in human history over the past week or so about who deserves to be fired for what mean or racist thing they said or tweeted. So CNN host Brooke Baldwin jumped into the debate to virtue signal and grandstand and let you know that she's against meanies. But she's not just against meanies. She's a good person, so she's against meanies in a bipartisan fashion.
Words matter. What Roseanne Barr said is racist, anti-Semitic, outrageous, and unacceptable. What President Trump has said is racist, outrageous, and unacceptable. And anyone who says these things deserves to be called out, chastised, held accountable. And the same rules apply no matter which political side you call home. Conservatives have been pointing to a double standard on how liberal stars who say these offensive things are treated versus their conservative counterparts. And in many cases, rightfully so. Take Keith Olbermann.
Donald Trump is a loser. Trump is indeed effing crazy. I'm setting aside policy for a moment because as mindless and as evil as the baboon's policy is, it can and will be rolled back sooner or later. And his policies all hang together if you just keep asking yourself, what would have happened here in this country if the Germans had won World War II? I'm talking about the man himself now. His brain does not work correctly. There is a myriad of possible explanations, and we have hit them all here. Congenital disease, drug use, any of a dozen post-concussion traumas, Alzheimer's, senility, lack of common sense, lack of awareness of things in the world besides himself, and endless specific emotional or psychological or intellectual incapacities, or all of these things at the same time.
You said recently via tweet that Trump and his family have done more damage to America than bin Laden and ISIS combined.
Yes.
In addition to telling the president to go to hell, he has also spewed the following to describe Trump and his family: a cowardly F-word, a mother effer, a Nazi, a stupid traitor, a rat-faced git, that's an unpleasant and contemptible person, and often tells the president to go F himself. By the way, these are all recent comments, but despite all of this, he just got another plum job. A job, ironically, at the same company that just booted Roseanne for violating its values. And just last night, on a network owned by our parent company, liberal TV star Samantha Bee said this to millions of viewers.
Ivanka Trump, who works at the White House, chose to post the second most oblivious tweet we've seen this week. You know, Ivanka, that's a beautiful photo of you and your child, but let me just say, one mother to another, do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless c***. He listens to you. Put on something tight and low cut and tell your father to f***ing stop it.
Okay, a couple of things. One, imagine for a second how liberals would have reacted if Roseanne or a conservative TV star had used that language describing Valerie Jarrett. Whether you agree with the president's policies or not, calling a senior advisor inside the United States government, or anyone for that matter, the C word, is, like I said at the top, it's outrageous, it is unacceptable, and should be called out. She could have easily made her point without using those words, a point that, by the way, is totally lost because she used that language. Doing this, she is no better than the very behavior she criticizes. In fact, she becomes part of the problem. And now, like most entertainers who go political and get into hot water, she'll say, whoa, 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 I'm just a comedian. But the problem is it doesn't work here. She's Samantha Bee. She's in this position of leadership, not to mention a role model to millions of young girls and to women, and to use that word from a woman to another woman. Offensive is offensive, wrong is wrong, whether you are on the left or the right. And what Samantha Bee did is not only beneath her, it is beneath where we should be as a society.
I hope you feel better about yourself there, Brooke. Did that feel good? Did that feel good, grandstanding over naughty mouth noises? I hope that felt good. Listen, man, I am not a fan of Keith Olbermann. In fact, I despise Keith Olbermann. I think he's the smuggest prick on the fucking planet. Samantha Bee is rivaling Keith Olbermann as the smuggest prick on the fucking planet. Don't like him. But this is why I came out, even when the Roseanne thing happened, and I said, I don't know. I don't really think she should be fired, because once we open this door of firing people based on offensive tweets or mean things that they said, it is the slipperiest, slippery slope of all time, and everybody's offended by something, and everybody thinks somebody else should be fired for something. So here we go. The day after the Roseanne thing happened, the conservatives were like, are you... The same parent company hired Keith Olbermann, who said all this fucked up shit about Trump, and she showed some of the stuff he said, like, oh, he's worse than bin Laden or whatever the fuck. Samantha Bee, and using the word cunt. Now, listen, I don't think that... I think there's a false equivalency at work here. I know that term is overused, but I think there is a false equivalency at work here. So in other words, I don't think that you can really put into the same category some of the things that conservatives say versus some of the things that the liberals say. However, I do think that as a matter of principle, we should just all agree, let's stop arguing like little children and trying to fire people over mean words or off-color things that they said, or even genuinely racist things. If we all just agree that the only reason somebody should actually be fired is because of poor job performance, then I think if we act based on that standard, I think everything will go a lot smoother and we'll stop having these dumbass conversations. But having said that, I can't stand this segment from Brooke Baldwin, because what she's doing is decorum policing. That's what this is. And it's an attempt to try to create a moral issue out of an issue which is not a moral issue. The random words you use, even if they're genuinely hurtful, that doesn't cross it over into the line of ethics or morality. What crosses over into the line of ethics morality when you're talking about politics, it's policy. So notice how Brooke Baldwin is chastising Samantha Bee because she used the word cunt. Meanwhile, what was she actually saying there? She was saying, hey, Donald Trump's administration, as a matter of policy, is separating immigrants from their parents. And for Ivanka Trump to release a picture like kissing her baby the day after that news broke, man, is that out of touch, man, is that dickish, and she's chastising her and saying, hey, do something about this. And Brooke Baldwin says, hey, you're distracting from the policy point you made, which is a decent point. No, Brooke, she's only distracting if you allow it to be a distraction. You're fucking CNN. You're CNN. Your job is to talk about the policy part of that, not to language police and be the offended brigade and be the PC police. And she, like, the thing that I think got under my skin the most about this is that she thinks like she's nailing it because she's like, I'm against mean things said on the right and the left. I'm so morally consistent. Yes, yes. Well, if you want to talk about moral consistency, let's talk about moral consistency. Language policing is not, you don't get to virtue single over language policing. Language policing is itself something that I find reprehensible and wrong. So why not, instead of being principled in your disparaging of people saying mean things, why not put the mean shit aside, let people keep their fucking jobs, and only talk about the shit that really matters, which is the policies. Because again, there's no end to this I'm outraged over what you said bullshit. Because everybody said something that's offensive to somebody. I mean, I've cursed multiple times in this segment while talking against Brooke Baldwin. Some people will spin this as, oh my God, it's a sexist rant where he uses vulgarity against a powerful CNN host woman, you know? And it'll be spun as like he's so deeply and irreparably sexist that he should be fired or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, things I say are deeply offensive to fucking Ted Cruz fans when I talk about how fundamentalist evangelicals are stupid and whatever. There's 1,000 things I've said that they despise. The way to avoid this whole dumb conversation is to draw a clean line and say, we should abide by the principle of free speech, even when it's not the legality of the First Amendment that's at play. And we should kind of let people say whatever they want and only talk about really firing somebody if they're just not doing their job effectively, which, hilariously, is actually what Brooke Baldwin is doing here. Your job as a CNN anchor in the middle of the day is to give the news, the facts about the world. Imagine for a second what the country would look like if every CNN host, instead of getting outraged over naughty words like Brooke Baldwin did in this segment, if they took this same outrage and generated it towards, oh, I don't know, the fact that Flint still doesn't have clean water right now. Jordan Chariton just exposed this the other week. They don't have clean water. Why are you talking about fucking mean words? Talk about that. We're bombing 8 countries. Talk about that. Talk about that. There was just a story that broke last night. Trump is like, I think we're going to get even more involved in Yemen. You read the details of that story, they're talking about taking the last port in Yemen that's held by the Houthi rebels. They're using that port in order to feed the entire country and get whatever medicine they can into the country because there's blockades everywhere else. So now we're talking about the U.S. getting directly involved, taking that port, giving the port to the Gulf states, and then what happens? Then it's a total blockade of the country, and everybody's starving to death, and no medicine is allowed in. So we're talking about getting mired even further in another war, and it's in the service of continuing a genocide. And instead of talking about that, you're mad because you just said the word cunt and said mean things about Trump, and it's so I'm against people saying bad things. Aren't I a good person? I'm for good things and against bad things. This isn't serious. You're not having a serious conversation. People's lives are really affected by the country that we live in and the policies that are in place. And instead of having that serious conversation, because you're comfortable with the salary you make and in the circles you run in, instead of having that conversation about how real people are impacted and what we're doing around the world, you grandstand and virtue signal about how you're against mean things said by mean people. Congratulations, Brooke. Oh, what a good person you are.